Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal this Sunday. I hope the weekend is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Obviously, tinged with a little bit of disappointment after Arsenal's failure yesterday to get all 3 points in that game against Everton at Goodison Park. So we're going to talk about that game far more in depth than I did in my immediate sort of post-match reaction verdict show that I did from the ground yesterday. You're going to look at it much more in depth, look at the big talking points from the game, look at that penalty incident, which still... Actually, I was going to say still, it actually makes me more annoyed now than it did at the time. But so we'll get my view on that and the referees in this country, but also on Arsenal's performance and what Mikel Arteta had to say afterwards. Got lots of reaction from you guys as well. Go through my player ratings and everything. Just to flag up, by the way, that the next week or so, things are going to be a little bit different on here in that shows are going to be few and far between, if there are even any at all. Obviously, I miss the Real Madrid game next week. I'm not going to be around for a week or so. So I will see if I can do anything while I'm not here, but I'll wait and see on that. So it might be that from tomorrow, I will try and pre-record something today that's going to go out tomorrow. But from then, you might get a bit of radio silence for a week or so before I get back. And then I fly to Madrid for the second leg of the Champions League game. So if you don't see any shows from me, if you don't see any uploads from me in the next week or so, nothing's wrong. I will be back. But just going to be away for a little bit. Right, let's get stuck into yesterday's game. Obviously, 1-1. 2 more points dropped for Arsenal. Another draw for Arsenal, which has been the story of this season. A draw that kind of is in keeping with Arsenal's season, to be fair, in terms of the theme of how it went. Not good enough attacking-wise. Didn't take the chances that they created. So has always had that jeopardy of it only being a 1-goal game. That when something can happen that can just, mean that you drop 2 points, either a great goal, a deflective goal, a set piece, or a refereeing decision. Yesterday, it was a refereeing decision which led to Everton getting a penalty. So we'll start on the actual performance. I didn't think, there was lots of changes. Mikel Arteta made 5 changes in the team that played against Fulham. I think he got his selection pretty much right, I have to say, in terms of what he had to try and do yesterday, but also keeping in mind what's coming up on Tuesday night against Real Madrid. So I thought overall the selection and even the substitutes and the minutes that the substitutes got in the second half, I thought he got it pretty much right there, because it was a tough balancing act with that Real Madrid game to come. But even with that sort of changed team, I thought Arsenal, they created some really good openings for themselves, even in the first half, also in the second half, where just with a little bit more sharpness or a little bit more ruthlessness, they could have put Everton to the sword. Obviously, got the 1 goal in the first half with Leandro Trossard. It was a nice goal, good little breakaway, sort of seized on the mistake by Everton. Sterling drove at the Everton defence, found Trossard, and it was a nice finish with his left foot from Trossard. But there were other opportunities in that half that Arsenal didn't take advantage of when they, again, sort of got themselves running at Everton and had got through the midfield, but they just weren't ruthless enough to take advantage of that. So it was only a 1-goal game. And when I talk about the sort of theme of the season, that has been the theme of the season. There's been so many draws for Arsenal this season because they haven't just given themselves big enough advantages in games. It's always been tight. Well, not always, but mainly it has been tight. It's just been 1 goal in it. And that does, as I said, leave yourself open to getting pegged back by anything. A moment of genius, a set piece, a corner, or a refereeing decision. So 1-0 at half-time. I thought Arsenal were thoroughly deserving that 1-goal lead, but you always had in the back of your mind, probably should be a little bit further ahead, given the sort of opportunities they had and some of the times they got racing towards the Everton goal. I do think right at the end of that first half, and I said it at the time, I was sitting next to Simon Collins from the Standard, and I was talking about it at half-time. I don't understand why Trossard didn't go down when he ran through right. I think it was pretty much in injury time, wasn't it? And he got down the left-hand side, and Tarkowski came sliding across, completely missed the ball, and Trossard had to jump about 3 foot just to get over Tarkowski. And, fair play, he wanted to try and get his shot away, but that was just, if he just stays, doesn't try and hurdle that challenge, he just gets taken out. It's a clear penalty. I was really, really surprised he didn't go down in that instance. It wouldn't have been a dive. I'm not saying he should dive, because it wouldn't have been. It would have just been an absolute blatant foul. Tarkowski would have taken him out, but he did everything he could to avoid that challenge because he wanted to get a shot away. And when he did, obviously, he was a bit close to Pickford. He was never going to score. So I think that was a wrong decision from Trossard. Then he really should have gone down. So 1-0 at halftime, and you're thinking, Arsenal are on top here. They should go on this win the game, but you just never know because it's only 1 goal. And then it happened early in the second half. It was a bad start to the second half by Arsenal. They just looked a little bit slack in the opening few seconds, basically. And then obviously the ball got played long. There was a misunderstanding, no doubt, between Kiwior and Lewis Skelly. They both kind of left it for each other, and that allowed Patterson to sort of get in and around Lewis Skelly. Not Patterson, sorry, Harrison to get in and around Lewis Skelly. But what followed on from there, it's just not a penalty. It is absolutely not a bit. The more I watch it, the more I'm just entrenched in my view that it was just never a penalty. No, I don't believe that anyone putting allegiances to one side can think that warrants a spot kick. If there is a foul, in my view, it's Harrison who starts the foul. He's sort of pushing down on Lewis Skelly. It's not great defending from Lewis Skelly. He gets himself in a bit of an awkward position and situation. Mainly because of that misunderstanding with Kiwior. But having said that, I just think it's a definite foul by Harrison. Well, it's not a definite foul, but if there is a foul involved in that incident, it's Harrison on Lewis Skelly. And then Harrison just buys it. He just gets into the box. And then just once he's pushed Lewis Skelly over, which he does, he then just falls over himself. There's no way that's enough for a penalty. It's just inept officiating, in my view. First from the referee, and then for the VAR, who just bottles it because of this whole clear and obvious thing. You're just allowing the wrong decision, even though you can watch it on the TV. You know, I got home last night from the game. I watched Match of the Day. You got Shearer on there, Lineker on there, Danny Murphy on there. They're all say straight away it's not a penalty. It's just not. You could, if you play the game, you know that's not a foul. You know that is not enough to award the other team a free shot at goal from 12 yards. You know, we hear all about this sort of high bar that has been set now to sort of give these decisions. You know, I watched it was the Aston Villa versus Brighton game in midweek, and the most blatant penalty decision, a player just sides down in the box and the referee just waves it away. And yet yesterday, that is deemed enough to give a team a free shot at goal from 12 yards. It's just never, ever a penalty. And obviously the referee was Darren England, who was the VAR for the incident when Lewis Skelly got sent off at Wolves, and that's led to everyone saying, this is their revenge on Lewis Skelly and all that. Which, you know, it is definitely a coincidence, I have to say. But I just think it's such poor refereeing and just in keeping with the joke that is PGMOL. It's just a running joke. It has been throughout the season. They're just a bunch of amateur officials running this country that time and time again are costing teams dearly. Now, they've cost Arsenal so many points. Arsenal haven't been great this season. I'm not using this as an excuse for why Arsenal are not sitting top of the table right now, but it's a reason why they're not at least closer to Liverpool, because they have been denied several points when they've been in leading positions by really poor decisions that has directly affected the impact of the game and future games as well. When you talk about red cards and players who have missed games like that and potential future injuries because you're having to load players up because they're missing players. So I think Arsenal, when this season comes to an end, when it finally comes to an end, I can't wait for the league season to come to an end. When it does, and you look back on it, you're going to look at disappointment in some of Arsenal's performances and the way they just haven't been good enough in the final third. But you're also going to look back on this as a season where the officials have really, really hurt them. And I just think last night or yesterday was another example of that. It just wasn't a penalty in my view. Look, there was a lot of time left for Arsenal to go on and win the game. And they didn't. You know, they could have done. They had chances in the second half. You look sort of late on. Martin Odegaard had a chance after Tierney had come on. Marino as well with the header after Tierney had come on and put in a good cross. Fair play to Kieran Tierney. That was a really good cameo for him. There was others. Martinelli had that driving run where Pickford made a good save. Declan Rice had the free kick that Pickford kept out as well. So there was chances for Arsenal to go on and win this game. The penalty decision wasn't the only reason. You know, they've got to look at themselves for not putting Everton away, which has been a tale of the season, of course. But it's still a really poor decision that has definitely impacted their chances of getting 3 points. I mean, you look at the stats from the game, you know, and you know Everton's XG there's 1.5, and you know basically all of that is the penalty, the free shot at goal from 12 yards that they've just been handed by the referee. Arsenal had plenty of opportunities. You know, it's an XG of nearly 2 in the game, 14 shots, 5 on target. They had some really good opportunities that they didn't take advantage of. So they've got to look at themselves as well as the officials. But yeah, it doesn't help. Doesn't help at all when you're getting decisions like that given against you. Mikel said, look, I think we deserve more, but that's what we got at the end. A really tough place to gun. What they do it really well, constantly putting the balls into the last line, dealing with direct play in second phases. I think we haven't conceded anything in the game, which was really positive. We were 1-0 up, had some big opportunities going into space. We didn't finalise the action in the second half. Then we didn't start well, didn't dominate the game. We had to be more aggressive, have more spaces. We started the opposite. We gave the ball straight to the keeper, direct play, trouble again, direct play, and the referee decides to give a penalty. That changes the course of the game, which I'm here to give my opinion on after seeing it 15 times. There is no way that, in my opinion, that's a penalty, because if there is, then O'Brien has to be out and Everton has to play with 10 men. That's clear. I'm not sure what he means by that. I think there was obviously an instant at some point else in the game where O'Brien did a very similar foul and nothing was given against him. He then goes on to say, after that, again, we dominated the game. We didn't get too much momentum because it's constantly breaking the play. And a big part of that was down to us, because after direct play, we gave very cheap free kicks away. We had 2 big chances to win. We didn't convert them. So we have to accept the point. So I think he's at the stage, if this happens earlier in the season when Arsenal were actually in a title race, I think he's going to be far more angry at that decision than he was yesterday. But I think he's in that place that we all kind of are now, where yesterday, as much as you want to win that game, of course you do, the most important thing yesterday was that Arsenal didn't get any injuries, and they didn't get any injuries, touch wood, not that we know about anyway. So that was the most important thing. It was all I was thinking about driving up to the game. I was like, I can't deal with seeing someone hold their hamstring or something like that. I just want everyone to get through the game so we get no more injuries. And it was good to see Ben White get 60 minutes. Timber got 30 minutes as well. So that bodes well for the Real Madrid game. But in terms of the result, obviously disappointed that it wasn't a win. Kiwior got man of the match, given on TNT, which fair play to him. I thought he had a good game, Kiwior. Him and Saliba were good together. I thought Saliba, you could see Saliba sort of encouraging Kiwior through the game, which was good, because this was a big game for Kiwior. If he is going to get the start on Tuesday night, and I have to say right now, I think he probably will get the start on Tuesday night at centre-back. He needed a good confidence boost going into that game, and I think he definitely would have got it. There was the sort of misunderstanding with Lewis Skelly that led to the penalty. They both kind of let it go for each other. And that's a sort of communication thing, because they haven't played with each other that often. But in terms of actually sort of defending what he did when he was on the ball at times as well, I thought it was a good, solid performance from Kiwior, and he can take a lot from that going into the Real Madrid game. Mikel was asked afterwards who's going to play in that left centre-back role, because obviously Ben White played, so you could move Saliba over to left centre-back, play Ben White as right centre-back, and have Timber at right-back. Mikel said, we have alternatives there. Today we have players that haven't played together, so that cohesion hasn't been there. Ben especially hasn't played at all, almost all season, so it's good that they have minutes and that understanding. We will assess what are the best options for that back line. I think that's going to be the one big sort of key decision Arteta has to make for the Real Madrid game, is who plays at left centre-back. Love to get your thoughts on this, by the way, because for tomorrow I'll do a sort of, I think the sort of theme of the show will be the decisions Arteta's got facing him, especially this key one about who starts against Madrid at centre-back. So I'd love to get your thoughts on who you think it should be. Should it be Kiwior? Did you see enough in that game yesterday for him to partner William Saliba, or would you play Ben White as a centre-back and move Saliba over to that left centre-back role? Or is there any other options that you would go with for the game tomorrow? Let me know your thoughts in terms of who should start, definitely at centre-back, but maybe elsewhere on the pitch as well. The key decisions Arteta has to make. Love to get your thoughts on that, and I'll get that included in the show for tomorrow. Okay, player ratings wise from last night, obviously there's no one I didn't give over 7, which kind of summed up the performance. Raya gave a 6. I don't understand David Raya, what he's suddenly doing on these penalties. We saw him against Manchester United in the penalty shootout. We saw it again yesterday. He's just basically saying to the attacker who's running up, take the penalty, look, hiya, I'm diving that way, so you put it that way. I don't understand the technique or what's going on. He didn't do that really in the penalty shootout against Porto, where he had a lot of success. It feels like it's something he's trying, but it's not working because it's so obvious. If it's obvious to us, imagine to a top elite level footballer, a Premier League footballer, who don't really have to stare directly at they'll be able to see what's going on out the corner and right perfectly. And it's just so blatant where he's going to go. And, Ndiaye didn't have to do much yesterday. He just had to wait a little bit, see where, by the time he struck the penalty, Raya was about sort of a metre over to his right. So Ndiaye knew he just had to put it in the other way. So I gave David Raya a 6 on that. Only made I think he only had to deal with one shot on target from open play, which he saved from Decore. Gave him a 6. White, I gave a 6. I thought White was okay. I've sort of seen some people not too happy with White's performance. You've got to think this is his first start for a while. But I thought there was some good signs, especially early on in the first half when he got on the overlap, which is good to see. So I gave him a 6. I gave the other 3 defenders a 7. So Lewis Skelly, Kiwior, and Saliba. Jorginho, I gave a 6. Rice 6. Marino 6. That's just not very creative midfielders that you always felt like Arsenal were going to struggle creative-wise with that midfield. None of them played badly by any means, and I thought Marino really sort of put himself about. But I just gave them all a 6. Ranieri was a tough day for Ranieri. He just wasn't really involved in the game. Patterson took him out early on with a really bad tackle that he didn't even get a yellow card for. And I don't know if that sort of just knocked him out of his stride. He went off at half-time. But yeah, it was a tough first half for Ethan Ranieri. It was just really, really on the fringes of things. So I gave him a 5. Trossard, I gave a 7. Nice finish from him. And Sterling, I gave a 6. I thought some of the subs played well. Tierney only on for 15 minutes, but I thought he did well. Set up 2 big chances, gave him a 7. I thought Martinelli was sharp, gave him a 7. Saka and Timber, Timber was what you expect from Timber, solid. Saka he was on for 45 minutes. He wasn't really in the game. He didn't really cause too many problems for Everton as he continues to try and get himself back to full fitness. And Odegaard missed a good chance at the near post from Tierney's cutback, put it over. So yeah, out of the subs, sort of the 2 standouts for me were Kieran Tierney and Gabriel Martinelli. Right, moving on to what some of you guys have had to say before we wrap this one up for today. Gordon says, seen the penalty incident about a dozen times from all angles and still don't see a foul by MLS, but not really surprised. Usual decision against us. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. I just don't see where the foul is there. I just don't get it. I do not see where there is a foul in that incident. Jude says, the main thing is we had no injuries and got players with some more minutes. Cup final is on Tuesday. Come on, you Gunners. Yeah, exactly. I agree. Mason says, penalty was soft. I agree. But really want to give Kiwior his flowers. His balls in behind were great, something that Gabriel doesn't offer as much. And they were a threat and hopefully will provide a lot of value come Tuesday. Hopefully Ancelotti wasn't watching. I'm sure he was. Real Madrid lost, though, at home yesterday to Valencia in the build-up to Tuesday night's game. That guy, Norm, says, look, Charles, I get it. It wasn't a penalty for sure, but when you struggle to score and concede in every game, then you're always going to struggle to win games. I generally cannot wait for this ridiculous season to end. I'm exhausted. Yeah, I agree. That's what I was saying. It was, as much as the penalty was frustrating, and it was, Arsenal didn't help themselves by only having a 1-goal lead, and it has been a story of the season. It's something they've got to improve on next season. Absolutely no doubt about that. Matt says the whole game felt like a bit of an end of season non-event. Disappointing we couldn't quite slam the door down in the second half after that dodgy penalty. But if you'd offer me a chance of 1-1 and no injuries, or a 3-0 and a new injury, let's face it, this week is all about Real. Kiwior's performance was biggest positive for me. Must be good for his confidence. Surely he'll start now on Tuesday. No way I'd be moving Ben White in there. I know he didn't have the greatest of game, but Marino is also starting to show why he's a good addition to the squad. He has definitely improved his season grade in recent weeks. Dimitar says, stop making excuses. Kiwior and MLS both missed the ball. Harrison was closer to it and his position was better. MLS didn't want to let him one-on-one with Raya and pulled him. A penalty for me. So Dimitar thinks it was a penalty kick. Have to say I disagree, but I suppose that we all have our own opinions. Mr. Spare says, I think we should be starting Tierney against Madrid, especially with Marino up front. Don't misunderstand me. Skelly's been fantastic. I just feel that Tierney has more experience, the ability to find a goal with his crossing, and is less prone to making the occasional rash decision. Brian says, Charles, I couldn't almost live with that dodgy I could almost live with that dodgy penalty if he had at least delivered justice for that awful tackle on Ranieri. I had thoughts of Aaron Ramsey, Diaby, and Eduardo in that instant. It's a shame that tackles are judged by outcome rather than intent. If that tackle had broken the poor kid's leg, it would have been viewed very differently, wouldn't it? Yeah, it was a bad tackle from Patterson. I was on the other side of the pitch, and you could see it was a bad one. A guy with a view says that statement put out saying that there was enough contact is just BS. I remember when Arsenal conceded the goal versus Newcastle, where a two-handed shove on Gabriel wasn't deemed sufficient contact. Fed up and angry, we've been screwed by PGMOL and that jackass Darren England again. Clearly, he's got it in for MLS. And Charlie says the penalty was soft for sure, but MLS should never have allowed the referee to make the decision. His defending was rash, not for the first time. I get he's a teenager, who still has much to learn, but he shouldn't be absolved of criticism. I'd rather see Timber at left back against Real Madrid. Absolutely not for me, Charlie. No way. Timber right back against Vinny Jr. for me all day long. And that's it for today, everyone. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it as always. As I said, I will get something done today, so I will have a show going out tomorrow. It's going to be a pre-recorded one though, because I'm not going to be around in the morning. And then from that point onwards, I will try and pop on here maybe and do the occasional thing, but it might be that I'm radio silent for a week or so. But I will be back. I will be back before Madrid in the second leg anyway. So until then, have a great time. Enjoy the sunshine for the next few days if you're here in the UK. I'll speak to you soon. And enjoy Real Madrid on Tuesday night at the Emirates. Speak to you soon. Bye-bye.